KZHube News Today. Ethiopian Airlines workers stow away on flights to escape conflict. The 14-month-long civil war in Ethiopia has seen ethnic Tigrayans fearing for their lives, with reports of people being detained for no reason, starved, beaten, and even killed. Many Tigrayans are willing to do whatever it takes to escape the country. For those employed by flag carrier Ethiopian Airlines, stowing away is proving to be one risk they are willing to take. Stowing away to get out of the country. The civil unrest in Ethiopia is taking its toll on society, with reports of human rights abuses, drone bombings, and extreme food shortages. The most vilified in this have been the Tigrayans, whose Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF), a former political party, is now classed as a terrorist group by the Abiy Ahmed's government. The TPLF has issued warnings of atrocities being committed against the Tigrayans, some even calling it genocide. Since the start of the civil war, thousands of Tigrayans and other Ethiopians have fled the country, with more than 50,000 arriving in neighboring Sudan as of mid-December. But not all who wanted to leave have found it easy to do so. A report today in CNN describes how some Ethiopians are going to extreme measures to escape the violence and harsh conditions at home. Specifically, the report details how two ground technicians employed with Ethiopian Airlines endured cramped and freezing conditions to stow away on a cargo plane in order to seek asylum overseas. The two workers, who haven't been named to protect their identity, climbed into the storage section of a cargo-converted Ethiopian Airlines Airbus A350 in the early hours of December 4, 2021. There, they waited for more than 3 hours in the cold, secreted behind crew luggage and crates loaded with roses bound for Europe. Speaking to CNN, one of the stowaways said, "We took the risk. We had no choice. We couldn't live in Addis Ababa. We were being treated as terrorists." The pair made it to Belgium, spending 7 hours in the air with no food or water and in freezing conditions. They had not EBG with them, not even their cell phones, and only the uniforms they were wearing. Both have successfully claimed asylum in Belgium. Not the first. The story of the two ground crew hiding away is one of many that have been uncovered by CNN and other publications. Just days before, on December 1, another pair of airline employees concealed themselves on board an international flight in order to be free of the country. These workers found a hiding place in the ceiling above the seats of the Boeing 777. As maintenance technicians, they knew exactly what they were looking for, although photographs from the subsequent investigation show they had to cut an access panel slightly wider in order to fit into the small space. They hid in this tiny compartment for more than 36 hours in total as the plane flew to Lagos and then Dublin, before finally landing in Washington, D.C. In total, CNN has uncovered 16 technicians who have escaped via any means possible, including stowing away or even boarding as cabin crew and then not returning for the flight back to Addis. Although Ethiopia dropped its state of emergency last week, things remain very difficult for people of Tigrayan origins. Attempts to leave the country by legal means are being blocked, according to people CNN spoke to, with passengers born in Tigray or with Tigrayan names being denied boarding for legitimate flights. For those who make it abroad, it's a bittersweet victory. Most are leaving everything they ever had behind, including families and friends. Life in another country is not easy either, with some struggling to find work and accommodation. The SOE might be over, but it will be some time before Tigrayans can feel safe in their own country again. By Joanna Bailey, Managing Editor. Eritrea's involvement in Tigray could backfire. The Eritrean military has been involved in the war in Ethiopia's Tigray region since the conflict broke out in November 2020. It sent thousands of soldiers in support of the Ethiopian Federal Forces in their operations against the Tigray People's Liberation Front. These actions have both prolonged and worsened the hugely destructive conflict.
Isaias Afwerki has essentially harnessed his cause to that of Abiy. When things were going well against the Tigrayan forces as in late 2020 and early 2021, it looked like a justifiable policy, however catastrophic for the civilian population. But it could backfire.
There have been signs that negotiations between the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan leadership may be possible. If there is to be serious dialogue between Addis Ababa and Mekelle, the Tigrayan leadership will demand the withdrawal of Eritrean forces and Isaias's removal from discussions over Ethiopia's future. Abiy will need to concede this. In such a scenario, Isaias will quickly find himself isolated. This would take him back to the pariah status he has occupied for most of the last 2 decades. Further, in the longer term, an Ethiopia where various parties are reconciled to one another's legitimacy could once again become a hostile entity on Eritrea's southern flank.
Involvement in other people's wars is inherently risky business. The Eritrean People's Liberation Front regime has frequently played with fire. It has done so domestically and regionally. Yet to date, it has seemingly defied geopolitical gravity. But the Eritrean army's disproportionately violent and inhumane intervention in Ethiopia in pursuit of payback against the Tigray People's Liberation Front and the regional stature Isaias has long craved could result in the most destructive blowback imaginable, a coalescence of Ethiopian antagonists and domestic opposition that presents an existential threat to the Eritrean government itself. The news was from lse.ac.uk. Richard Reed, who is Professor of African History, St. Cross College, University of Oxford. More than 17,000 pro-ENDF and more than 30,000 police and civilian Tigrayans are still in detention camps suffering from diseases and death.